Hi, and welcome to another edition of What's the Story here on the People Chronicles. My name is Joe Painter, and I was getting curious, and I know you've seen a lot of it in the news about this collaboration going on. We have the Chamber, right? It's really the Greater Reading Chamber of Economic Development, and then we have Greater Reading Economic Partnership, and then we have this Greater Berks Development Fund, and we're going to smush them all together and make this corporation. Who's going to run it? Ta-da! Randy Pierce, thanks for joining me on What's the Story. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. You have a tall order in front of you. And I'm curious, what made you throw your ring into the hat? I mean,
well, first, let me just say, and you did a very, very good job, better than most in terms of talking about the three entities and who they were coming together.
Okay.
And the name is still a little confusing for people. It's the Greater Reading Chamber and Economic Development Corporation.
Can you say that 3 times?
GRCEDC, as we say for short.
Oh, nice. Good job.
And what's in a name? The work is more, I said in the newspaper that the work is more important than the name. But that being said, we are working on the name, and we are going to hopefully within a month or so sort of figure out a much easier name to brand and to market, so that the general community could really pick up on who we are much easier than it is now. But in essence, 3 wonderful organizations that have been doing work for many years here in Berks County have come together. You're right, the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Greater Reading Economic Partnership, and the Greater Berks Development Fund. And part of your answer to the first question is just that alignment alone is really why I decided to come here. There's plenty of examples where chambers and economic development corporations have come together, but there are very few examples where you add a financing arm to the mix.
The Development Fund.
Greater Berks Development Fund, which just sort of strengthens the capacity to do business attraction, business expansion, job creation, and business investment in our community. So the position itself was attractive because of that alignment, which I think is really innovative. That's number 1. Number 2.
Wait a minute, you gotta say that again. Did you hear that? Reading and Berks, really innovative.
Really innovative.
I like that.
So that was part of it for me. For the last 11 years in New York, I had been running a job training organization. In fact, it was the largest job training organization working with disconnected youth.
So let's back up just a moment there. You said New York, so you're from Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York, born and raised.
Localize that. Born and raised in Brooklyn.
Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Dodgers?
Well, before my time, but I am a Mets fan, which was the successor.
Okay.
The Mets were the successor to both the Dodgers and the Giants, which left New York.
But now you're in Philly's country.
I did say it during my first in-person interview with the search committee that I probably won't be rooting for the Phillies against the Mets. I have no problem rooting for them against anybody else.
That's fair.
But I can't abandon my Mets. Mets fan, we're tortured by nature, right? Because they just break our heart every year. So
I know there's an allegiance there, and it's the same with the Phillies. So there's you have an alliance.
So maybe I would make a good Phillies fan. I don't know.
You might.
But yeah, so this alignment and this innovation around the sort of 3 organizations was very much a motivation for me, because I had been running a very successful workforce development agency in New York. In fact, it was the largest organization under contract with the city to work with the disconnected youth population. So these were young adults 17 to 24 who weren't working, weren't in school. 80% of them or so didn't finish high school. So these were really kids that needed to really get back on track. It was a second chance program. And we had a very strong model, blended GED instruction along with vocational training, and helped them to both get their first job, get into college. A lot of these young adults didn't even think about college as an option, but we were able to get them back on track. And I had been doing that for 11 years, but before that I had worked for the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and I was their vice president of economic development. So after this wonderful run, the organization's name was Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, OBT, of 11 years, I wanted to get back into the chamber world, into economic development. So
there was a calling.
So there was definitely a calling.
So to speak.
Certainly in terms of my sort of career choice, I wanted to get back into that field. So we've got this interesting alignment, right, which I thought was super innovative and creative. We've got my career desire to want to come back into this field. and then we had sort of a little bit of a personal draw too, which I kind of mentioned to you before we started taping. My wife's family, my wife's in-laws, my wife's wife's parents, my in-laws, they live up in McConchy, Pennsylvania.
So you're kind of closer to home, at least your wife.
Well, we're closer to them, and they're in their 80s now, and my wife also has a sister out there. So we have a 12-year-old daughter, so she's going to be closer to Grandma and Grandpa. She's going to be closer to her cousins. So we're excited about that.
Well, that having been said, you've obviously been visiting McConchy over the years because it's family. Yep. Have you visited Reading? Did you make it did you stop by? And if so, for what? What did you come here for?
So we spent a lot of time up in Lehigh County, right, for sure.
Right.
But we did come through Reading. We came through Reading a lot because when we did a lot of tours of the area, whether it's on the way to Philly or whatnot, we stopped here. We stopped at VF Outlets. By the way, you've got this wonderful I'm a big baseball fan, right? So I have these these delusions that I'm going to get back into baseball one of these days.
Don't be deluded. Never too late.
And
you can do it.
There's a wonderful it's technically an over 28 league, but we'll say over 30 league.
Do you qualify?
I just thank you. But in any case, we stopped at the Rawlings outlet there, and I got baseball. Yes,
okay.
It's over at VF, which is really, really cool, and you actually get some really, really good deals out there too. So we did come down to Reading several times.
I'm hearing VF was a draw. I'm trying to determine from somebody who's not here what makes you turn off the bypass and go into Reading. So VF Outlets.
Yeah, but also, we spent most of our time up in Lehigh. So really when I started to learn more about Berks County was when we got involved in this search process.
Okay.
That was really when I started to spend a lot of time down here. It was a 3.5-month process that it took for the business leaders here at the GRCEDC to identify me, and then to go through that process, to sort of interview me and vet me, and for me to sort of vet them, right, and to really do some due diligence on my part about the area. And what I learned is that there are so many wonderful assets here in Berks County. If you think about it, for a county of our size, population-wise, we've got 5 colleges and universities, right?
Amazing, yeah.
Pretty amazing. Yeah. 2 quality healthcare systems, right? We've got all of this outdoor recreational activity within, a couple of miles of wherever you are in the county, right? You've got a world-class performing arts center. You've got the Santander Arena and 2 minor league, sports teams, right? You start to think about it, and you're close to Philly, you're close to New York, you're close to all these major markets. So what a wonderful set of assets that we're sort of working with. And that was really what I fell in love with when I was going through this process, because I realized there's just so much wonderful potential here.
It's
so
nice
much
to
we
hear
can
that
do.
from somebody outside who's coming in, because sometimes, as you know, as everybody knows, when you live somewhere, you start to take all these things. Well, we have 5 colleges, we always did. You sort of can take it for granted.
Right.
So it's nice to hear that. What was the biggest surprise when you came here?
The biggest surprise, I think, was just the fact that people were so open and willing to sort of accept me being an outsider and coming in with some different ideas.
That's nice to hear.
I was a little worried, I heard some stories about, the culture down here, and we've been doing things this way forever.
You heard that?
But I haven't seen that. And
that is good to know.
We could say at least for some of the business leaders here in the community, they took a step to hire somebody from Brooklyn, New York, right? So kudos to them. But in this first 6 weeks being here, I've spent most of my time just going around different parts of the county talking to different community stakeholders, not all business leaders, and everybody has been so open. So accommodating and so willing to sort of share with me, their perspectives, and that has just been such a wonderful process. So,
do you get the sense? From being from this area for a long time, there have been over the years these concerted efforts, kind of individual concerted efforts to make a difference and make a change, and they succeed, and it's an ebb and flow kind of process without a strong stick. And do you get the sense that there's more people on board, or there's a belly hunger for change and positivity, and maybe a quest to figure out how to do it?
Well, here's the here's the part that I have an advantage on. Because I'm not from here, I don't know too much about all those other efforts, right? So all I know is in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And in the moment, my sense is that people are really, really energized and excited about the potential for change, and they want to see change. And and I said this to you earlier, but some themes have emerged. The themes themselves.
What's the prominent theme?
Well, there were. I don't want to rank them in any prominent order,
Fair.
but the four themes that have really come up pretty consistently, regardless of whom I've spoken to. The first is that the city of Reading really does matter, and I think even folks outside the city, they recognize that long term, to ensure the prosperity and economic health of Berks County, that things are going to have to turn around in the city. And if you think about it, if you disaggregate the economic data from Reading, Berks County does pretty well. In fact, it does better than average on most important economic indicators. So it's pretty clear that the challenges are here in the city, and everybody sort of gets that intuitively. And I think everyone has a genuine sense that things need to change. How we get there, what the approach is, what got us to this point, that's been all over the map. But for the most part, I think it's healthy for me to hear that everybody recognizes that that's a concern. The second thing, and this was a little bit of a surprise, to be quite honest with you, but for me it's a pleasant surprise because it's almost in my wheelhouse given my background. The workforce development challenge is real. And by that, a lot of our companies are worried about where their future workers are going to come from.
But we have 5 universities.
Yes. So we've got, just take the advanced manufacturing sector. If we didn't even grow that sector, just replacement jobs alone over the next 10 years, and by the way, Dan Fogarty from our Workforce Development Board talks about this all the time. He's really good at sounding the alarm here. Even in terms of just replacement workers, 31,000 manufacturing workers, we're talking about over the next 5 to 10 years, we're talking 6,000 to 10,000 workers that are going to need to be replaced. That's a lot of people that need to be trained in advanced manufacturing.
But there's the Schmidt Center and the Votex. Are they helpful to us?
Very helpful. And I've never ever seen such a great concentration of advanced manufacturing training in any one geographic area. That's the good news. Here's the not so good news. We haven't been able to leverage that training to the degree that we need to in order to ensure that we'll be able to fill all of the jobs of the future. Whether it's just marketing careers in manufacturing. There was a great event the other day hosted by Manufacturing Resource Center called What School in Manufacturing, getting middle school kids partnered with some of our manufacturing firms and getting them excited about careers in manufacturing. But beyond that, even leveraging the Schmidt Center as a regional resource to serve, a much wide beyond just Berks County. So that's a concern. And by the way, the concern about the future workforce is not just in manufacturing; it's in healthcare. Healthcare is our second largest employer in this community, and we can attract some specialists, and that part of it seems to be working out pretty well. Reading Hospital does a really good job of this. But below that, the LPNs, the rad techs, the nutritionists, the occupational therapists, this whole other cadre of professionals in healthcare, where are they going to come from? Once again, good news is we have the capacity on the college side in order to meet that challenge. But we do have to leverage these resources, and we do have to make sure that the folks that are going to college here are actually going to want to stay here afterwards.
So, having said that, what do you see as you don't want to rank, a big challenge for you? I mean, you have your work cut out for you. You've identified a whole lot.
Right.
What's going to be one of the biggest challenges?
I just want to quickly say the third theme, small business development and assisting entrepreneurs in the community. It's something that every chamber does. I think our chamber has gotten away from that a little bit in terms of its core mission, and we need to get back to that mission. And by the way, within that sort of theme, it's really working with the Latino business community, because that's where a lot of our new entrepreneurs and a lot of our small businesses are coming out of, that community. So
does SCORE
we have to
fill
work
some of
that
gap?
Well, SCORE is very helpful for people thinking about starting a business.
Right,
The
right.
very early stages.
Correct.
And then we've got the Small Business Development Center, right, which is operated out of Kutztown University and it functions here in the city out of the Community Foundation offices. And they do a certain set of programs too that are really, really good for that kind of next stage. But, you know, business development, it could be taking that small little firm of 1 or 2 people and then, you know, helping them move to that next level, helping them access financing, helping them to find new real estate, helping them with staffing support now that they're going to source for some of these new employees.
So you see that as a chamber
role? It's a whole suite of services. Yeah, because chambers do 3 things. Promotion, support, and advocacy, right? Promotion's the stuff we all know about. It's hosting events, networking events. It's having some of our members featured on this show and other shows in order to promote who they are so that they can, you know, expand their businesses. Advocacy, our chamber does really, really well. It's and Gail Landis is our senior vice president who handles advocacy, and she's fantastic. And, you know, that's about the big picture. That's about working with our elected officials, working with our policymakers, and, you know, really promoting a better business climate through effective policies, right? And that we do pretty well. It's this middle tier support, which is a sort of a wide open kind of field. So anything that helps a business to run itself better is really what support comes to, right? Anything that helps a business to expand, whether it's financing, whether it's real estate, whether it's minority and women-owned business certification programs, whether it's accessing incentives, all of this falls into that category of support. And that's one of the areas on the chamber side that we want to strengthen.
That's challenge number 1.
Yeah, so that's one of the priority. That's one of the responses to the theme,
right,
which is we want to strengthen our capacity in those areas too.
So beyond that work thing, what's the first thing you want to really do and explore?
Well, there's in
this area.
So there's a challenge within the challenge, and let me tell you that too, because bringing 3 organizations together that previously
heavy lies the crown, you know.
That previously sort of operated, they collaborated on some things, but I wouldn't say they were very integrated in terms of their approach. So that's what I call the challenge within the challenge. And I think the reason that the business community here felt I was in a good position to sort of carry that part of the mission forward was because, you know, over the 11-year period that I was CEO at Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, first of all, I inherited the organization under unusual circumstances. We had a founding executive director who passed away, and the organization was really on some tough times. There was some financial challenges there. There was the emotional turmoil of a death of your founding executive director.
Right.
She was a nun to boot, Sister Mary Franciscus too. So, this story had a lot of elements to it.
Yeah.
But when I started, we were a small grassroots, $2.5 million organization, worked with 240 kids in one community in Brooklyn. By the end of the 11 years, and it really was a great, rewarding kind of run for me. We were an $8 million organization. We had 6 locations across the city. We were serving 5,000 people in total, 1,500 kids, and we had become the leading provider of job training services for that population, those disconnected youth. So, I've lived through an interesting sort of experience of. And that was about growing an organization and all the challenges that were tied up into that, building structures in place so that we're not doing things more grassroots, but in a more professional way. Not exactly the same story here, but very similar set of circumstances and tools.
You just talked about the 3 organizations, and they're working together, but not necessarily integrated. So how would you define the difference between their collaborating and integrating?
So they collaborated on certain things, right? So one of the things that has been clear just in my first couple of weeks is that while they all were on the same floor in that building, in the Gateway building, there was infrequent communication. The only time, I shouldn't say the only time, but they communicated when there was a certain project that involved all of them, but there wasn't proactive communication, keeping each other informed about what they were doing. And when you're not communicating, you're missing opportunity. So part of it is just about, more frequent communication. The second part of that is them just getting to know each other, right? So day one on the job, I spent just with the staff. and we did some team building exercises, and it was supposed to be a get to know you session, them getting to know me. It turned out they learned so much about each other that they didn't know, that they were so pleasantly surprised that it builds off of itself, because once you start to know who you're collaborating with and who you're working with, then it's much easier, and you realize I actually like my colleagues, and it's actually kind of fun to be working with them, and that in and of itself helps bring the team together. So that has been part of the equation.
So that's the integration.
That's the integration. The other thing is, technology is part of integration these days. Let's just face it, getting on one email system, getting one coordinated, one website, all of that is going to be part of the equation. We're not there yet. We're still working on that name thing, but at the end of the day, we're gonna market and brand ourselves as one entity, one organization, with a whole set of comprehensive services that really any business could access. So,
is the brainstorming going on right now about the new name?
It is.
It is. Any contests? You're taking suggestions? Not that I have one for you.
We'll certainly entertain suggestions.
Okay.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. But I can't disclose anything that's come up yet. So.
But we can be the first to know, right?
Yeah. Breaking news right here on the People's Chronicles. Good try.
Randy, it has been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure.
Welcome to Berks County.
Thank you.
And very best to you. I have a feeling we're in very good hands.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Want to know more about who's doing what in Berks County? Check out the stories on thepeoplechronicles.com.
These community stories are made possible in part by BCTV, Susie Ray Design, Queen City Family Restaurant, Lamar Advertising, Heidelberg Family Restaurant, Reading Air, Lions and Hole, Peanut Bar, and Kutztown University.